If we're about to die anyway, I'd rather die fighting! I am Atreyu!
The NeverEnding Story was not only a film, it was a gateway, a portal to a realm where sorrow weighed something, desires had authentic potency, and a frightened little boy could become a hero. But behind all the magic, behind Fantasia's stunning vistas and Falser's flying heights, the world was disintegrating. The writer who imagined the entire world into being attempted to prevent the film from ever seeing the light of day. A horse almost drowned in front of the cameras. A child actor was permanently scarred. And for one actress, the part that might have catapulted her to stardom introduced perils her parents never intended for her to encounter. What transpired was not only a fantasy movie, but a bizarre epic of creativity, heartbreak, fixation, and survival. These are the hidden truths of the NeverEnding Story. A movie that offered eternal life, but in private, bore wounds that could not be healed. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Star Vault TV, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. It starts with Michael Ende, the German novelist who penned Die Unendliche Geschichte, the book that would eventually be the NeverEnding Story. The novel wasn't simply another fantasy for Ende, it was his magnum opus, an intensely personal exploration of bereavement, identity, and the thin line between fantasy and reality. It was a warning against forgetting who you are, and it was wrapped in the quest of a solitary boy and a dying planet. And so, when the movie makers took only half of his book, smoothed out its tone, and sanded off its darker thoughts, Ende was appalled. He pleaded with them to desist, even going so publicly as to denounce the movie as a gigantic melodrama of kitsch, commerce, plush, and plastic. When that was ineffective, he insisted his name be removed from the credits. He sued, desperately attempting to regain the tale he felt had been plagiarized. He lost. The film spread worldwide, loved by children everywhere, while its author watched on in despair. For Ende, The NeverEnding Story was more than a title, it was a guarantee. And, in his opinion, the film violated it. Most audience members never even noticed. In the film, the story concludes with Bastian yelling out a name in the gale, rescuing Fantasia, and riding aloft on the back of a luckdragon. But in Ende's book, that was merely halfway. The actual fall starts after Bastian enters Fantasia. Inside, his desires become dizzying. He constructs cities, uses magic, remakes the world as if he were God. But with each desire, it drains him of a memory. Gradually, he loses himself who he is. Pride eats away at him. Mercy escapes. Bastian becomes a tyrant, the anti-hero of his own tale. It is a tragic, cautionary tale of escapism without introspection, a warning that was removed from the film. Hollywood preserved the magic, the dragons, and the triumphs, but abandoned the most important part, the reality that fantasy, if misused, can destroy you. The lost layers started even sooner, in scenes American audiences never got to see. In the original German release, the film began with Bastian and his dad at breakfast, silently mourning his mom's passing. His father, trying to bring his son back down to earth, encourages him to stay with both feet firmly on the ground. But Bastian can't. His head floats higher, already halfway in a world nobody else can perceive. It's a sweet, fumbling scene that makes everything make sense. Why the boy must escape, why reading a book is a matter of survival. But the scene was removed in the US cut. 7 minutes lost for the sake of pacing. Without it, Bastian's anguish is general. His running into Fantasia feels like a deus ex machina rather than an attempt to cure himself. The fantasy continued to blind, but the motive behind it was lost. But the fantasy was never secure, not even for the performers. One scene haunted generations of kids, the Swamp of Sorrow. Artax, the horse, descends deeper and deeper into the mire as Atreyu screams, begs, and struggles to rescue him. To millions of young audiences, it was their first broken heart, and rumors spread that the producers had crossed a line, that the horse was really slaughtered in order to capture that shot. The reality is another thing, but in one sense worse. The crew constructed a hydraulic platform under the mud to lower the horse down safely. But the rig failed. The animal panicked, struggling frantically. Trainers leapt into the muck as the set fell still. For one dreadful moment, the swamp of despair seemed likely to engulf Artax for good. The horse lived on, but the trauma remained. In the cast, in child actor Noah Hathaway, who portrayed Atreyu, and in the creature itself. The swamp did not simply appear to be sorrow. It was for an instant, and Noah Hathaway's own agony did not end there. He was only 12 years old, forced to bear the whole fantasy universe on his shoulders. No stunt double, no safety net, just a boy pushed to the limit. He learned sword fighting, horse riding, even underwater breathing exercises that left him panting at the brink of blackout. Next was the mechanical wolf, Gmork. The giant robot creature went haywire during filming, and its metal claw swiped Noah's face, inches from his eye. He had to be taken into surgery, disfigured for life. Production shut down, but Hathaway came back, stitched up and traumatized, to complete the movie. To an estimated million of kids, he was a brave warrior. Off the record, he was a kid doing whatever he possibly could not to break. Even the sets themselves posed a threat. The Southern Oracle, which glowed and mystical on television, almost incinerated the studio building. Pyrotechnics malfunctioned, propelling a fireball into scaffolding. Fire engulfed. Crew members were frightened out of their wits. Through pure chance, nobody was murdered. They came back the following day, traumatized to continue filming. The NeverEnding Story posed real dangers, and they increased with each shot. Everything came at an astronomical price tag. It cost $25 million to make, the most ever spent on a movie in West Germany. Fulcer alone took over a dozen operators to blink, fly, and smile. The swamp set took weeks to film. Delays spun out of control. Budgets expanded exponentially. Eventually, the studio itself was all but destroyed. If the movie bombed, it would not merely sink a film. It would drown careers, reputations, and the aspiration ever to try a German fantasy epic again. For the actors, sacrifices didn't even stop at filming. Years on, Hathaway admitted that a large proportion of his lines had been reshot by another actor. The studio deemed his voice too high-pitched. The kid, who bled for the part, never was able to speak fully in his own film. For Tammy Stronach, who played the Childlike Empress at the age of 11, the price was even darker. Her performance, airy, wise beyond her years, made her an overnight celebrity, but it also attracted unwanted attention. Fan mail from adult men poured in. One Hollywood agent even attempted to seduce her into a skeezy film role. Her parents removed her from the business right away. No sequels, no interviews, no going back to the screen, because the world behind the camera was not safe for a girl like her. But somehow, in the middle of all the pandemonium, the movie found its beauty. It discovered lines so poignant that they almost didn't make it out of the cutting room. They look like big, good, strong hands, don't they? The rockbiter whispered. Executives wanted to chop the scene as too dark for kids, but editor Jane Seitz insisted on retaining it. That admission of failure became the emotional pulse of the film, a reminder that even in Fantasia, loss is real. Audiences loved it. Critics were at a loss, too bleak, too odd, too melancholy, but kids from all over the world identified. It grossed more than $100 million, one of the most profitable foreign-language films in American history. It wasn't toy-based or franchise-based. It remained fixated on sorrow. Its heroine was a subdued kid cowering in an attic, and somehow that otherness was its charm. American kids, German kids, children everywhere saw themselves in Bastian. Fantasia belonged to everyone. The legacy spread in unexpected ways. A California metalcore band named themselves Atreyu, inspired by the boy warrior they'd grown up with. The soundtrack's theme song by Lim All, written by Giorgio Moroder, charted across Europe and later returned to popularity decades later when Stranger Things revived it in a nostalgic duet. Even Steven Spielberg put his stamp on it, cutting the U.S. release and retaining the Ora medallion as a keepsake. It branched out into sequels, television shows, and an animated series, but none approached the original's richness. They lost the heart, and without it, the tale was not never-ending, it was simply repeated. And yet, something of Fantasia remained. Years later, in Munich Bavaria Film Studios, Falser waits still. The 43-foot puppet dragon, intact with soft fur, sits poised. Fans sit on his back, smile into a wind machine, and for a fleeting magical instant, they believe Falser still soars. Because the NeverEnding Story was never a fantasy movie. It was a tale of sorrow, evasion, and the strength to have faith in something greater than yourself. It traumatized its performers. It shattered its writer's heart. It almost bankrupted its studio, and it became a human legend, spoken in tongues, recalled by children once who wept when a horse drowned in a swamp. Some tales die, but some tales persist as long as somebody continues to read.